8 U.S. military helicopters launched from a carrier in the Arabian Sea on April 24, 1980. 3 failed mechanically before reaching the first staging point. The mission was abandoned. 8 servicemen died, not in battle, but in a collision on an Iranian desert flat. 52 Americans had been held hostage in Tehran for 171 days before this attempt. The failed rescue left them captive for 273 days more. The operation cost 8 lives and contributed directly to the fall of a U.S. presidency. It then triggered the largest restructuring of American Special Operations Forces in modern history, one whose consequences still reach across the world today. How does the world's most powerful military fail before reaching its own target? The Iran hostage crisis began on November 4, 1979. Iranian students seized the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, taking 66 people. 14 were released within weeks. 52 remained, held for exactly 444 days. Those 444 days make it the longest hostage standoff in modern U.S. diplomatic history. To scale that, 444 days is longer than most Pakistani governments have lasted in office before being dismissed or removed. The rescue operation deployed approximately 130 Delta Force personnel, carried by 8 helicopters and 6 C-130 transport aircraft. The helicopters flew roughly 965 kilometers from the USS Nimitz in the Arabian Sea to the first staging point inside Iran, a distance equal to flying from Karachi to Delhi. The mission required a minimum of 6 functioning helicopters to proceed. When the 6th reported a hydraulic fault at the staging point, the commander aborted. The operation never reached Tehran. Not a single Iranian security force was encountered. It is 1953. A CIA and MI6-backed operation removes Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh from power. The operation is codenamed Ajax. Mossadegh had nationalized Iran's oil industry, directly threatening British and American petroleum interests worth billions of dollars. The Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, is restored to power with direct U.S. backing. He rules for the next 26 years using a security service called SAVAK, built and partially funded by the CIA. By the mid-1970s, Amnesty International documents Iran as holding more political prisoners than any other country in the world. Iran also produces 5.8 million barrels of oil per day by 1974, the world's second-largest exporter, placing it at the center of U.S. strategic and energy planning. By 1978, mass protests engulf Iranian cities. Millions participate, one of the largest popular movements of the 20th century. On January 16, 1979, the Shah flees. On February 1, 1979, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini returns from 14 years in exile to a crowd estimated at 3 to 5 million people in Tehran, documented as one of the largest public gatherings in recorded history. The Islamic Republic is declared on April 1, 1979, following a referendum in which 98.2% of voters, approximately 20 million people, approved the change. For the United States, this means the loss of its most important strategic ally in the Persian Gulf, a relationship built over 26 years and reinforced with substantial military aid. On October 22, 1979, the US admits the Shah for medical treatment. In Tehran, this is interpreted as renewed American interference. 13 days later, on November 4th, 1979, Iranian students seize the US embassy. 66 people are taken. The country with the world's largest military budget finds itself unable to free 52 of its own citizens from a single building. It is April 24th, 1980. President Jimmy Carter has exhausted 171 days of diplomacy. His administration has frozen approximately $12 billion in Iranian assets, suspended arms contracts, and expelled Iranian diplomats from the United States. Formal diplomatic relations with Iran are severed on April 7, 1980, 17 days before the mission launches. The rescue operation, codenamed Eagle Claw, deploys that night. 8 RH-53 DC Stallion helicopters take off from USS Nimitz in the Arabian Sea. They fly in radio silence, in darkness, toward a pre-planned staging area in Iran called Desert One, a remote salt flat in the Dashti Kavir Desert, roughly 800 kilometers southeast of Tehran. The helicopters fly through 2 severe dust storms. Helicopter number 5 turns back to the Nimitz. 2 others develop faults mid-flight. By the time the remaining 6 reach Desert One, 1 more reports a cracked hydraulic pump. Commander Colonel Charles Beckwith assesses the situation. The minimum mission threshold is 6 operational helicopters. He now has 5. At 2:57 local time on April 25, 1980, Beckwith radios Washington. President Carter authorizes the abort. During repositioning to leave, 1 helicopter collides with a C-130 transport aircraft on the ground. The impact ruptures fuel lines. 8 U.S. servicemen die in the resulting fire, 5 Air Force crew and 3 Marines. The United States suffers more casualties in the withdrawal than in any operational phase of the mission itself. Iran's population of 38 million sees the wreckage in their desert the following morning. Classified documents, aircraft, and the remains of U.S. personnel are left behind. The images reach Tehran, Karachi, and Cairo within days. The Holloway Commission, appointed by the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff in 1980, documented failures across every phase of planning, command, and execution. It was not one error. It was a cascade. The helicopter fleet suffered a 37.5% mechanical failure rate. 3 of 8 aircraft became non-functional before a single phase of the rescue was completed. In any commercial aviation context, that failure rate would ground the entire fleet globally. Iran's oil output had collapsed from 5.8 million barrels per day in 1974 to approximately 1.5 million by 1980. That single drop was equivalent to removing Bangladesh's entire annual GDP from the global energy market every year. The United States froze approximately $12 billion in Iranian assets in November 1979. Under the Algiers Accords, Iran received back $7.9 billion. That means $4.1 billion remained withheld, a figure larger than Pakistan's entire national budget in 1981. On September 22, 1980, 5 months after Eagle Claw, Iraq invaded Iran. The war lasted 8 years. Estimated casualties range from 500,000 to over 1 million people across 2 Muslim-majority nations. On January 20, 1981, all 52 hostages were released alive, 444 days after being taken. The United States formally committed to non-interference in Iranian internal affairs under the Algiers Accords signed the previous day. The US and Iran have maintained no formal diplomatic relations since April 7, 1980. As of 2024, that severance is 44 years old. In direct response to Eagle Claw's failure, the United States established the Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC, on December 1, 1980. By 2023, JSOC has conducted documented operations in more than 80 countries. Iran's population in 1980 was approximately 38 million. By 2023, it had reached approximately 87 million. That entire generation has lived under a sanctions architecture whose humanitarian consequences, including documented shortages in medicine and essential goods, have been recorded by the United Nations. 44 years. That is how long the United States and Iran have gone without formal diplomatic relations, a direct consequence of a crisis the rescue operation failed to end. The 52 people held in Tehran were released alive, every one of them. But for the 87 million Iranians alive today, the consequences of those 444 days have never ended. They live under a sanctions framework laid in 1979, before most of them were born. The operation lasted one night. The rupture it could not prevent has lasted 44 years and counting. How long can a single failed mission continue to reshape the world?